All. So just kicking off this live. My painting in the way. It looks a bit silly. So I just wanted to do this today. I just had this thought earlier because of, so I'm on Facebook, Insta, and YouTube. So if I'm jumping between the three, that's why. I just want to jump in today to try and give you guys a little bit of help and a little bit of insight, I guess, on how to deal best with what's going on in the world, with the stress aspect, with all those sort of things for you. Now, it's not going to be clinical advice. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, but what it is going to be some advice for you just to understand how you can best help yourselves and help each other with what's going on. Type any questions or anything you have in, especially on Insta. There's some of you guys I see waving and whatever on my on Facebook Live here. I'm just having a look to work out how I do it. Don't know if I'll even work it out. If I can't, doesn't matter. So what I really want you to understand is this. At the moment, because we're going through this scenario that's such a challenge and so difficult, obviously at the moment out there with COVID-19, we've got mass shutdowns of basically most things in society. There's a whole lot of you guys that no doubt are going to be under a lot of stress and pressure financially, as we all are. With me, with the Strong Life Project, obviously there's different things going on with that. There's a whole lot of different things going on with you guys, I have no doubt. There's a lot of stuff that's becoming really challenging. And so one of the things I really wanted to come on here and talk about for you is just how you guys can manage that and how you can handle that for yourselves, because obviously this is going to be an extremely tough time. Now, one of the things that I think is super important in this scenario is understanding that this is going to be such a time for extra stress and pressure, which we all get, you all understand that. But it's going to be exceptionally stressful in our relationships, exceptionally stressful in a whole lot of different environments for us in our lives. And that's going to cause a whole lot of extra pressure and difficulty for us on top of just what the financial and the employment scenario is. So I'll give you a couple of really simple examples. I've been talking to a couple of people in the last 24 hours who are obviously quite challenged, and there's some pretty serious stuff going on in their life for them. The more I speak to these people, the more that I sort of help them understand it's about dealing with what's real, not dealing with what your fear is. And many of us have the fear, and look, I absolutely have to catch myself in this often during the day where my fear kicks in, where I'm like, well, you know, what if my business fails? What if this happens? What if that? How long can I survive financially? What about my kids? What do I do if, you know, it's the catastrophizing part of real panic around what's happening that we're not probably looking at in an intelligent enough aspect to actually work out what that means. So working out for you whether the things you're panicking about are real, and if they're real, then you absolutely need to deal with those. And if they're not real, then you really need to have to park them. So if you've seen me looking around all over the place, it's because I've got 3 different devices running with these 3 different lights, right? One of the things that I see, like I had an example, I was talking to a young guy today who's a cop, and we were talking about how there's been a number of police officers who have had quite a negative reaction to the extra work they're going to have to do, some challenge around, you know, police should get extra treatment, special treatment for this thing or that thing. And I said to him, I said, well, the other way for them to look at that is go, well, as a matter of fact, police officers are clearly it's going to be very difficult, and I'm going to touch on some of that soon. It's going to be very difficult for cops, I get that. But also, as part of that process, they are government employees, so the financial job security isn't such an issue for police officers as it is for other members of the community. So then we've got to start looking and go, so what is the reality of our scenario and our situation, and what's the reality of what we're dealing with? So if you are somebody who has had you've been laid off from your job, or you're very unsure as to what's going to happen economically, I totally understand that. Like, it's such a difficult thing. But you need to be dealing with what the reality of this thing is, not dealing with the catastrophizing or the fantasy, because you will absolutely go into a limbic brain, caveman, 70,000-year-old brain part of fight or flight panic. You're going to panic. You're going to be really concerned about what's happening. I totally understand it, but it's not going to help you. When you go into that limbic brain fight or flight panic, your prefrontal cortex shuts down in your brain. You literally can't make good rational decisions. It is purely emotional. You will then act emotionally and angrily, or with frustration, whatever it may be, with the people close to you, the people you love. You're going to be potentially in self-isolation. We're all going to end up locked down. My belief, in the next probably 24 or 48 hours, I think we'll be moving to a level 4 lockdown. I haven't seen what that means for Australia, but I've seen in New Zealand government's outline of that, and that basically means anything other than essential workers, which, and I'm not going to go through a list of those because I'll be guessing, but obviously police, health workers, emergency workers, etc. But anything outside of that in grocery stores will probably close. Now, that may well happen here in Australia as well. I believe that's going to happen in New Zealand in the next 24 hours. So therefore, we're going to get to a point where we are going to be spending a whole lot more time with the people that we love or we live with, in confinement, in closed spaces, under extreme stress and duress. There's going to be a whole lot of that is potentially going to become quite challenging. And it's going to become quite challenging for a number of reasons. One of the things that really concerns me is a lot of people, I think, will go to the point of using alcohol as a means of coping with that. And the more alcohol you drink in this situation, in close confines in your house with your family, the closer you are together, locked in the four walls with more alcohol, more stress, more whatever, is going to be pretty catastrophic. I think we may well see a whole boost in and a rise, not in a positive sense, a rise in domestic violence. We will certainly see a rise in arguments. We'll see a rise in a whole lot of other things. That's pretty challenging. So why I want you to understand that is this. All of those things that may occur, you need to be able to understand and need to be able to cope with. Because here's the reality. For the first time in probably over a century, we're not in control of what we do day to day. We are in control of it at this stage in the level 3 restrictions. If it goes to a higher restriction, I have no idea if that will or won't happen. If New Zealand's doing it, I've got to presume we probably will. But we're at a point now, and I've spent the whole last 24 hours at home in self-isolation on my own, not for any reason. I'm not sick, I don't have any symptoms or whatever, but I'm like, I'm just going to limit my time out in public as much as I possibly can. But here's the thing. You guys are going to have a sense of absolute desperation because of job losses and financial impact, which I totally understand. There's going to be a whole lot of stress and tension in your homes. There's going to be a whole lot of feeling of helplessness and hopelessness because you don't have control over what you're doing at the moment. There's going to be a whole lot of sense of extreme stress and fear of the future because we don't know what's coming. We all understand that. But here's the thing. You can control one thing, and you can always control this thing. That is your reaction to what occurs. That is your reaction and the practical steps you take to change things. We are definitely going to be in a place now where we need to be a lot more emotionally connected to each other, even though physically we're going to be isolated and distant. We need to be able to dig in together and help each other out as much as we can. So if you have a family member or a good friend who is struggling financially, there's a lot of government support, obviously, but there's going to be a whole lot of other things that we're going to need to do to help each other. The government's not going to be able to support all of us. What we're going to need to be able to do is become comfortable with the uncomfortable, understand that the uncertainty that's coming in our future is absolutely guaranteed for at least the next number of weeks, who knows. I have my own personal opinion as how long I think it's going to go, but I'm not going to share that because it's an opinion and I could absolutely be wrong. It's only what I think. I'm literally dealing with this every day. And what I mean by that is I wake up today, understand what's going on, understand what the implications are for me within that framework, understand what I'm going to be able to do about it, what the positive things I can control, what the things that I have some influence over, and then the things I have no control over. So it really falls into those three categories, right? And the thing that I really want you guys to understand is this. It doesn't matter if this goes for 2 weeks, 6 weeks, or 2 months. You can only deal with what's happening right now, right in this very moment. You cannot be worrying about nor being concerned about what happens tomorrow or in 7 days or in 21 days because you have no idea if that even occurs. You have no idea how that looks. You have absolutely no fucking idea whether that's a reality or not. So you really need to get a little bit more strong routine that needs to center around some form of movement, exercise, whether you're doing burpees in your lounge room, whether you are walking around the block in isolation, obviously, which at the moment is still okay, whether you are using some equipment, you are, Googling YouTube videos, hit body weight workout videos on YouTube and do it in your lounge room. You need to move. But movement's second, because the first thing is you need to sleep. Sleep is going to be critical to you to get 7 or 8 hours sleep so you can cope with the stress. You can cope with what's actually going on because there's going to be a whole lot of shit happening that unfortunately we're not going to have control over. Only your reaction is what you control, as I said earlier. So when you get sleep, 7 or 8 hours sleep, you do some exercise, your nutrition is so important, and more so than you probably realize. as you're going to be sitting around more sedentary in your life, locked in the four walls of your home, the more stimulants that you ingest in the form of sugar, preservatives, shit food, the worse you're going to feel, because that impacts your neurochemistry. That then impacts your mood. It impacts your resilience. It certainly impacts your ability to deal with stress. And at the moment, stress is a freaking massive thing that you're going to need to deal with. So eating clean food with as little preservatives and sugar in it as you possibly can is going to be really important. The third part for you is meditation, which to me is just going to be absolutely essential. There's an app called Insight Timer. Go INSIGHT Timer. It is free. There's 16,000 meditations or something on it. Go onto that app, search it for meditation around anxiety, fear, uncertainty, sleep, whatever the thing might be, and freaking use it. And then the last thing, you really need to get a whole lot more disciplined, more focused, and have better control around what you're watching and what you're ingesting. If you are watching the 24/7 news cycle, and I've fallen in and out of that trap in the last couple of days, I've been turning the news off because none of it's good news, right? And we don't really need to know the details of how many cases of coronavirus there is, what's going on around the world, what's happening in Italy or Spain or anywhere else. There's absolutely no idea. There's no positivity coming out of that for you because you can't control it. There's a thing I got taught many years ago. It's called the 3 business theory. So we talk about your business, other people's business, and then God's business, universe, whatever you want to call it. I'm very spiritual, but I'm not religious, so it's not a traditional God in my sense. But my business is the shit that I can influence, how I feel, the impact on me, the stress I have, my own financial situation, the situation with my daughters, the situation with the people I love that are close to me, how I interact with them, impact them, assist them. The second part is other people's business. So if you and I are talking about our friend and bitching or complaining about them, that's not our business, that's other people's business. Get your head out of it. If you're talking about, oh my God, I don't know why they let cruise ship passengers get off cruise liners in Sydney and now they've got coronavirus and that's ridiculous, get out of it. Not your thing to talk about. If you're worrying about schools and you're posting on social media about whether kids should be at school or not, you're not the Chief Medical Officer of Australia. It is not your concern to make that decision. Stop fucking talking about it. You need to get very disciplined about what you're talking about and what you're focusing on. If you guys think my eyes are darting all over the place, you just joined us, it's because I'm on 3 different devices, right? On Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, FYI. So what I want you to really get your heads around is this. Your responsibility is going to be to manage the impact on you, manage what you engage in and what you don't in this whole process. And that's the drama, that's the bullshit, that's the fear. It's all the things that you are going to want to engage in because that's human nature. The gossip, looking at the worst case scenarios, the catastrophizing, all of those things are 100% within your wheelhouse. So I really need you guys to understand there is nothing good coming out of that. There's nothing good coming out of you watching the news every day, 24/7, sitting in your lounge room, ingesting panic, fear, uncertainty around what's going on in the world because you can't fucking change it. So you need to get back to those 5 things I just talked about, which is your sleep, your nutrition, some exercise, some meditation, and some mental rehabilitation. If you want to shoot me an email or a message on any of these platforms, just DM me on these platforms is probably easiest. But if you want to shoot me a message on any of these, then I'll send you a 2-page PDF document that I give out to my clients around meditation, nutrition, a whole lot of things with some info on it. If you want that, happy to give it to you, free of charge, of course. What I want you to really get is you guys have got to get your shit together in a sense of your own personal responsibility. We cannot be going out in the streets panicking. You've seen the toilet paper fiasco and the ridiculous bullshit that went on there. I actually have some real concerns around us as humanity as things get worse because we've been shown to be the very flawed, difficult and selfish individuals that we really are through the last couple of weeks here in Australia and around the world. I really want you to start looking at yourselves and going, what sort of person do you want to be in this? How do you want to be remembered? Because your behaviours right now will be remembered by people around you. Are you going to be remembered by the people you love as the person who went out, stocking up in 400 rolls of toilet paper for what fucking purpose? I have no idea because I still don't understand that. Are you going to be reminded as the person who was stressed and snapping at their family and drinking themselves into oblivion, causing fights and DV and conflict? Or are you going to be the loving, connected, supportive person in your life who is obviously stressed and has a lot of anxiety and challenge, which we all do, but is somebody who's doing their best to actually be positive in that sense? That's going to be a question for you. Now, I'm going to come on and do these every day. I have something on at 3 p.m. on Thursday, 4 p.m. New South Wales or Victorian time, and whatever other time that is, work it out. I'm going to work out a time to do that. But if you follow my social media, either Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, then you will see I'll post about when I'm going to do these. I'm going to come on every day. I'm going to spend however long it needs to be, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, half an hour, to actually assist you guys. So send me messages on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn if you have questions to ask that you want answers to, if there's things that you want assistance with. Somebody commented on the original post I put up just before. This happened absolutely off the top of my head. It wasn't something that I planned. I was thinking about it this morning. I've been talking about doing it a little bit more, and I just thought, fuck, this is what I need to do, is get on here and try and help you guys, because it gives me a sense of purpose, gives me something to do while we're all locked down and there's nothing happening. But hopefully if I can give you a bit of assistance to be able to get through what will be a very difficult time for all of us, and it's very worthwhile. Please do me a favor and share these posts with all your friends and as many people as you can. Obviously, I'm not charging anyone for this. I just want to be able to be of assistance and try and have a positive impact on some of you guys to help you with this stress. Please understand that your control of what happens in this scenario is up to you. There is going to be no one else coming. There's a whole lot of, hundreds of billions of dollars in government assistance. But you need to be checking in on each other. You need to be checking in on your family members, on your, obviously the people who you live with and you love, but the people who are close to you, friends. I've had a couple of phone calls from friends today just checking in to see how I'm traveling, which is amazing. We need to be as connected as we can possibly be at the moment whilst we're so physically disconnected. And the irony of this whole scenario, I think, will end up being, this may well be, I hope, a bit of a reset in the way that humanity behaves, because we've all become so caught up in such a materialistic world where we don't really give a shit about each other. It's more important about your new four-wheel drive or your $20,000 watch or your new duck lips or your new fake nails or dress, $3,000 suit, house, overseas holiday, whatever. Something that I said in a podcast a couple of days ago, and it might piss some of you off, how many Instagram or Facebook likes you've got. You're probably not standing outside or inside taking 32 photos to get the perfect casual selfie. A lot of this, I think, is going to bring us back to the roots of who we are, where we need each other. We are going to have to depend on each other as a society, as a family unit, as friendship groups, as all of those things. We are going to need to be a whole lot less selfish and a whole lot more committed to helping each other out. Let's hope that that happens. Let's hope that we actually get through that, because I tell you what concerns me is, if anything like the toilet paper crisis of 2020 is what I've dubbed it, the sheet crisis of 2020, where people lose their fucking minds and stock up on toilet paper for now probably a week or 10 days where nobody else can get any, when the reality is toilet paper was never an issue. This is the sort of thinking and the selfishness that I believe is really going to be destructive to us as a society and destructive to us as a community. We have had to put together an extra hour of shopping in the morning when no one else can be in there just so they can get their groceries, which is abhorrent, disgusting behaviour in the first place. But not only is that the case, but the second part of it is then we also have to post security of police, because able-bodied men and women are pushing through those barriers to get in on their own because of their own fear and panic and sense of entitlement. It is absolutely disgusting. I, for one, am not terrified about running out of toilet paper, pasta, or anything else, because governments are not stupid. We will still need to have supermarket and grocery access. No government in Australia is going to have you starve to death in your home because you are isolated, because we are locking down to stop a pandemic spread. When we need to go to a high level of containment because people don't have the common sense and we don't have the ability to understand going to a beach like Bondi, and I am very reliably informed by many people, there was many other beaches in Mooloolaba, on the Gold Coast. It wasn't just Bondi, where people are like, oh, yeah, it doesn't apply to me. And I have to be really honest and go, I initially was in that very same camp, where I thought to myself, oh, well, it's a storm in a teacup. It's a good Aussie way where we go, it'll be right, mate. Let's not worry about it. But let's start to fucking worry about it. Because at the moment, Italy, from my understanding, and I've done a fair bit of research into the background of it, probably didn't act with the same level of intensity that we are now. Not a judgment on them, don't understand it intimately enough to comment, as I said, but look at this and think there's two things that are going to happen. One, we go to a high level of alert as we are now, and everybody gets locked down, and it's a few weeks of really difficult challenge. Or two, you keep mucking around and being selfish and not giving a shit about isolation, self-isolation. You don't give a shit about whether you need to stay 14 days isolated because you've been overseas. You are so selfish because as a younger person, you may feel like it's not an issue for you. Could be any one of a number of those things, but in the end, it is going to have a huge impact on us. So you can either pull your head in and be a responsible member of society and grow up and act like an adult, or you can keep being selfish and whinging and bitching about what's not fair. I was watching a thing today when we were saying, I saw a thing on a post to social media on a Facebook group that I'm in. It's a particular location group. And there was some conversation. There were some people in a park doing yoga. And there was a whole lot of hatred. Oh, they can't do that. That's bullshit. Why? You know, our kids are at school. What about this? What about that? Understand what the restrictions are. You can be outside in a park exercising if you're, you know, one person per 4 square meters and 1.5 to 2 meters from other people. You guys all know what the numbers are. Just use your freaking common sense. Getting outside and getting some vitamin D and actually getting some oxygen for you might be a great idea. Walk around the block, whatever the case may be. But don't get caught up in the panic and the bullshit. Don't get caught up in the hatred. Don't get caught up in the keyboard warrior hiding in your mum's basement, having a chop at other people because you think it's a good opportunity to do that. This is going to be a very telling time in human history. It is going to speak volumes as to who we are as a society. And unfortunately, my belief is that so far we've started off abhorrently poorly. We are doing a pretty fucking terrible job of looking after each other. We're doing a pretty fucking terrible job of taking responsibility for ourselves. Don't want to sound like your school teacher, don't want to sound like your dad, don't want to sound like I'm kicking your ass, but here's the thing. We need to start standing up and actually looking after ourselves, but also holding each other accountable, because that's where we're getting to. As time goes on, there is absolutely going to be an increase in domestic violence because people are together. There is absolutely going to be a huge pressure on our police officers, our paramedics and ambulance officers in our health system. I will not be at all surprised if we end up needing to mobilise military to help in some respects with things. It's just my opinion. I could be wrong. Don't panic when these things happen. Don't panic when we're locking the streets down. If you see Army Reserve personnel walking around in military uniform, don't panic. We're not at war. Start using your fucking common sense. Control that limbic brain fight or flight response. It's the part of your brain that goes berserk when you watch a horror movie and has you terrified that something's going to hurt you or happen in that horror movie. You have the ability to control it. Don't fall into the feeling of panic. Don't fall into the feeling of your own lack of responsibility and mayhem and poor me. Control yourself. We all have the ability as adults to control our emotional responses and reactions. Look at the reality of the situation and do what you can practically to change it. It's going to be in an economic sense, helping each other out. It's going to be in a sense from the point of view of actually growing up and banding together with the Aussie spirit, or if you're overseas, wherever you are, whatever country in your community, band together as human beings to look after each other. Let's actually change the decades of self-centeredness and selfishness and prove to ourselves that we can actually band together in this crisis and help each other out. I'm not sure that we can do it. I have some real concerns, let me be very honest, because I've seen too much of the behaviour as a police officer. I've seen too much of the behaviour over the last number of years where I feel we're getting more and more selfish as a community and as a society. We're becoming less and less interactive and supportive of each other. Here's my plea to you. Please look after each other. Please look after yourself. Please look after anybody you can. If you know elderly people, reach out to them. If you have neighbours who you haven't seen for a while, reach out to them. However, you put a note under their door. I don't freaking care. Whatever the case may be, make sure we're staying connected, because one of the biggest impacts of this is going to be mental health. It's going to be loneliness. It's obviously going to be an extreme stress response. The thing I haven't said now and challenges me to say, but is reality, we're going to have a huge spike in suicide potentially, because people will feel isolated, alone, and have no solution to their issues. Between us, we can all get through it. You're just going to have to dig in. We're going to have to do the work, and we're going to have to look after each other. I've said it 7,000 times in the last 25 minutes. I'm going to come on here every day at 3 p.m, except Thursday. It will probably be a different time. I'll let you know when, because I have something else I need to do. But I'll be here every day, 3 p.m. Queensland time, 4 p.m. New South Wales and Victorian time. This is something that I really want your help with. Send me messages, send me questions, send me concerns, whatever you need. A number of you have been sending me private messages while this has been going on. I totally get you might not want to ask your questions publicly. Understand that. Understand a lot of this stuff is very personal and very vulnerable. Totally understand that. Shoot me the messages with the questions. I will have a list of them and I will answer them. Share this video with as many people as you possibly can. Please share with as many people as you can at 3 p.m. every day, except Thursday this week, and 4 p.m. New South Wales, Victoria time. I will be on here on YouTube, on LinkedIn. Oh, sorry, not LinkedIn. On YouTube, on Facebook, and on Instagram Live. And then I'll be posting this video to my LinkedIn feed so you can access it there. It will be on YouTube at the Strong Life Project. That's a YouTube channel. It'll be on the Strong Life Project Instagram. It'll be on the Strong Life Project Facebook page. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning in. Those of you who have been leaving some really good comments, thank you. Those of you who messaged me, I really appreciate it. Please understand, I don't claim to be the know-all guru in this space. All I know is I've spent a lot of time studying this stuff, and I've spent a lot of time in my life fucking things up. So I know what panic does, and it destroys things. I know what stress does, it destroys things. I know what anxiety does, it destroys things. Don't catastrophize. Don't lash out at each other. Become vulnerable and connected with the people you love. Talk about the fear and the anxiety that you're going through. Don't try to bottle it up. And for fuck's sake, don't try and medicate it with alcohol or drugs. Locking yourself in 4 walls with your family and belting yourself on alcohol is a recipe for disaster. The last thing we need is a massive spike in domestic violence. I believe that will probably occur because most people won't listen. I also believe that we're going to have a massive spike in mental health and stress, hence why I'm going to do these every day. If there's something else you think I can help, please shoot me the ideas. Happy to do it. Whatever I can do to assist you guys while I'm sitting here in self-isolation, and not because I'm crook, not because I've got any symptoms, but just because I'm trying to be a responsible member of society. Happy to do what I can to help. Hope that helps. Shoot me a message, shoot me any questions. Really appreciate you guys tuning in today. I will talk to you tomorrow at 3 o'clock. See you then.